I moved into apartment 4B because it was the cheapest hole I could find, $400 a month, utilities included, in a sagging brick building on the edge of town. After 6 months bouncing between friends' lumpy couches and a back seat that smelled like stale beer, I didn't care about the details. The landlord, Rick, met me out front, a sweaty guy in a stained polo, jangling keys. Last tenant, Mike, skipped out a few weeks back, he said, scratching his neck. Left some crap behind, but it's yours if you want it. I nodded, too tired to haggle. I hadn't slept more than a few hours a night since the warehouse layoffs hit. Stress, bills, the whole mess. A quiet place, even a dump, sounded like salvation. The apartment was a time capsule of neglect. The living room had a threadbare carpet, brown like dried mud, and walls stained yellow from decades of nicotine or worse. The kitchen sink dripped, a steady plink-plink I could already hear in my nightmares. The bedroom was small, just a mattress on a rusty frame, and a closet with a door that didn't quite shut. It smelled damp, like wet cardboard left out too long. But I dropped my duffel and thought, this'll do. I'd slept in worse. Truck stops, a buddy's garage with a leaking roof. If I could just close my eyes, here without the world pressing in, I'd call it a win. That first night, I rummaged through the place, taking stock. The fridge hummed, empty except for a half-dead roach. The bathroom mirror was cracked, splitting my reflection into jagged pieces. Then, in the bedroom closet, behind a pile of mildewed towels, I found it. A cassette tape, labeled Mike 315 in faded Sharpie, next to a boombox with a cracked case. I hadn't seen a cassette since I was a kid, taping radio songs off a boombox just like this one. Nostalgia tugged at me, or maybe it was boredom. I brushed off the dust, slid the tape in, and pressed play, expecting some grunge mix or a guy strumming a guitar. It wasn't music. A voice crackled through. Mike's, I guessed, low and unsteady, like he was talking through clenched teeth. Day 12. It's 2 a.m. The noise is back. A long pause stretched out, then a faint sound, scraping, sharp, like nails dragging across wood. My stomach tightened. I can't sleep, he went on, his breath hitching. It's in the walls. The tape hissed into static, cutting him off mid-thought. I sat there, boombox balanced on my knee, staring at the closet. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I got up, pressed my ear to the bedroom wall. Cold plaster, a few hairline cracks, nothing more. Rats, I told myself. Old buildings like this were full of them, scratching around in the guts of the place. But Mike's voice stuck with me, raw, panicked, like he was confessing something he couldn't unsee. I shook it off, set the boombox on the nightstand, and lay down. Around 2 a.m., I heard it, a soft, deliberate scratch from behind the headboard. Once, twice, then gone. My pulse kicked up. I grabbed a melatonin from my bag, swallowed it dry, and forced my eyes shut. When I woke, sunlight cut through the blinds. My pillow was soaked with sweat, and my nails were crusted with dirt I couldn't remember digging into. The scratches came again, that second night, sharper, more insistent, like something dragging a blade across the drywall. I'd fallen into a shallow sleep, the kind where you're half aware of the room. When it started, 2 a.m., right on cue. It wasn't just behind the headboard this time. It skittered along the wall, paused, then scraped again, like it was circling me. I bolted upright, heart hammering, and slammed my fist against the plaster. "Cut it out," I yelled, voice cracking. From disuse, the noise stopped. Dead silence, thick enough to choke on. Then, a single, slow scrape answered back, deliberate, like it was mocking me. My skin went cold, prickling up my arms. I fumbled for the light switch, half expecting to see claw marks, or worse. Nothing, just the same stained walls staring back. I couldn't shake it. That scrape lingered in my head, replaying like a stuck record. I'd lived in rough places, warehouses with rats the size of cats, a basement with a busted sewer line. But this felt different, personal. I grabbed the boombox from the nightstand, hands unsteady, and played Mike's tape again, needing some clue to pin this on. The static hissed. Then his voice kicked in where it left off. Day 14. I saw it last night, by the window. It's not rats. The scraping on the tape grew louder, a jagged rhythm under his words, like it was keeping time. "It knows I'm awake," he whispered, so low I had to crank the volume. His breath hitched, and the recording cut out. Silence, then a faint thud, like something dropped. I rewound it, played it twice more, straining to hear past the scratches. Each time, that whisper, "It knows I'm awake," sank deeper, curling into my gut. My window faced a narrow alley, 4 stories down, brick on one side, a rusted fire escape on the other, swaying in the wind like a drunk skeleton. I yanked the blinds up, squinting into the dark. Nothing moved, just shadows pooling under a flickering streetlight. But my reflection in the glass looked off, eyes too wide, skin too pale, like I'd aged a decade since moving in. I told myself it was exhaustion. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours since that first night, living off instant coffee and adrenaline. The scratches weren't rats. Rats don't answer back. I paced the room, bare feet sticking to the grimy floor, and tried to think it through. Maybe a squatter in the walls, some junkie hiding out, but the building was a coffin. 5 units, all empty except mine, according to Rick. I called him at 8 a.m., phone trembling in my hand. "Something's in the walls," I said, voice rough. He chewed something loud, gum maybe, and snorted. "Mice? Happens in old places. I'll send traps later." His tone was flat, like he'd heard it before. "Later when?" I pressed. He hung up. I stood there, staring at the dead line, then grabbed a box of snap traps from the dollar store down the street, set them along the bedroom walls. Cheese, peanut butter, the works. By nightfall, they sat untouched, springs still cocked, while the scratches kicked up again. 2 a.m. sharp, this time from the ceiling. I tilted my head back, eyes tracing the water-stained plaster overhead. I'm on the top floor. No attic, no crawl space, just the roof, and no one stomping around up there in the dark. I dragged a chair under the spot and stood on it, pressing my ear to the ceiling. Cold, damp, silent. Then a faint shuffle, like bare feet shifting weight. My breath caught. "Hey," I shouted, banging the broom handle against it. Nothing. Then, from the kitchen, soft and clear, Sam, my name, in my voice, but slower, deeper, like it was tasting the word. I dropped the broom, stumbled off the chair, and ran to the kitchen, empty, just the sink dripping, the fridge humming low. The light flickered, casting my shadow long and warped across the linoleum. I checked the locks, bolted tight, then sank against the counter, pulse pounding in my ears. I hadn't said a word out loud since yelling at the wall. Whatever called my name wasn't me. Sleep stopped being an option by the third day. I'd catch myself drifting, head nodding over a lukewarm coffee mug, then snap awake to the echo of those scratches, like a nail file sawing through my skull. They'd started behind the headboard, then crawled to the ceiling, and now they were everywhere. Walls, floor, even the rusted pipes groaning in the bathroom. My eyes burned, red-rimmed and dry, and my hands shook so bad I could barely hold a spoon. I'd been in apartment 4B less than a week, and it felt like months, years maybe, since I'd last shut my eyes without that noise clawing me back. I wasn't just tired, I was coming apart. The tape was my only anchor, the one thing that proved I wasn't losing it. I'd played it so many times, the boombox's buttons stuck, gummy with sweat and desperation. That morning, I sat cross-legged on the bedroom floor, the cassette whirring again. Mike's voice crackled through. Day 20. I tried leaving. It followed me to the door. I'm not crazy. The scraping on the recording was deafening now, a jagged rhythm that drowned his words, like something was tearing through the walls to get to him. Then a thud, heavy, final, like a body hitting the floor. I rewound it, played it again, ear pressed to the speaker. Past the static, I caught a new sound, a low hum, almost a moan under Mike's panic. It wasn't there before. I turned the volume up, straining to make it out, and my chest tightened. It sounded like my name, Sam, stretched and warped, like a plea from underwater. I couldn't trust my head anymore. 3 nights of this, 2 hours of sleep, tops, had turned my thoughts to mush. I saw things in the corners, shadows that twitched when I blinked, a smear of motion by the window that vanished when I turned. The apartment was a cage, 5 empty units in a dying building, walls thin enough to hear a cough, but I hadn't seen another soul since moving in. Rick's mice excuse rang hollow. Mice don't hum, don't mimic. I'd checked the traps again that afternoon, still set, peanut butter untouched, while the scratches kept coming. I paced the living room, bare feet sticking to the grimy carpet, and caught my reflection in the cracked TV screen. Hollow cheeks, eyes like black pits. I looked like a ghost, haunting my own life. I had to know if it was real. That night, I grabbed my phone, battery at 12%, screen smudged from shaky fingers, and set it on the nightstand. I opened the voice recorder, hit start, and muttered, Day 5, testing. My voice sounded foreign, hoarse from disuse. I lay back on the mattress, springs creaking under me, and stared at the ceiling, those water stains spreading like rot. The room was still, just the drip of the kitchen sink in the distance, until 2:13 a.m. The scratches kicked up, sharp, rhythmic, right behind the headboard, like something carving its way through. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just let the phone catch it. 5 minutes of scraping, louder each pass, then a pause, silence so thick it pressed on my ears. My voice cut through. It's here. Low, raspy, not a whisper, but a statement. I hadn't opened my mouth. I lunged for the phone, stopped the recording, and played it back. Volume maxed, hands trembling. The scratches were there, clear as a bell. Then that voice, mine, but not mine, saying, "It's here." I rewound, played it again, then a third time, ear mashed to the speaker. Same words, same tone, but I'd stayed silent, frozen in bed. My reflection in the screen stared back, too pale, eyes too wide, like someone else was wearing my face. I threw the phone down, scrambled to the light switch, and flicked it on. The bulb buzzed, casting jagged shadows across the stains. Nothing in the room. No rats, no squatters, just me, and that recording looping in my head. Around 3 a.m., the door rattled. Not a knock, a slow, heavy shudder, like something leaned against it. I hadn't touched it since locking up hours ago. I grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter, its blade dull and spotted, and crept to the hallway. The peephole showed an empty stairwell, flickering fluorescence, chipped paint, no one. I pressed my ear to the wood. Silence, then a faint scratch, like a fingernail tracing the grain. I backed away, knife slipping in my sweaty grip, and checked the bedroom. The closet door was ajar, half an inch maybe, though I'd locked it that afternoon. Deadbolt turned. I yanked it open. Empty, just the boombox and Mike's tape, sitting there like an accusation. I didn't sleep after that. Dawn came gray through the blinds, and I sat on the mattress, knife in one hand, phone in the other, replaying that clip until the battery died. "It's here," it kept saying, in a voice I didn't own. I don't know what Mike ran from, what followed him to the door, but it's with me now, scratching, waiting. I'm not crazy. I've got proof. Last night broke me. I hadn't slept in days. 4, maybe 5. I'd lost count, and the apartment wasn't just a place anymore. It was a trap, closing in with every scratch. The air felt thick, sour with mildew, and something sharper like rust or blood. I'd stopped eating. Coffee burned a hole in my stomach, but food wouldn't stay down. My hands were raw from gripping the knife, my nails chipped from clawing at nothing. The scratches had turned to bangs by midnight, walls shuddering, floor vibrating, like something heavy was pacing the rooms I couldn't see. Then my name started, "Sam, come," over and over, echoing from the ceiling, the closet, the sink drain. It wasn't my voice anymore. It was rougher, hungrier, like it had been waiting. I tried to hold out. The phone was dead, battery drained from that recording. "It's here," in a voice I didn't own. The boombox sat silent, Mike's tape still inside, but I couldn't touch it. My fingers shook too bad to press play. Around 2 a.m., the bangs stopped, and the silence was worse. Thick, pressing, like the building was holding its breath. Then the closet door creaked, slow, deliberate, an inch at a time. I'd locked it, checked it twice, but there it was, gaping open, the tape glinting in the dim light, like a lure. I grabbed my duffel, stuffed my clothes in, 2 shirts, a pair of jeans, the knife, and bolted for the front door. The knob wouldn't turn, jammed, or something holding it. I yanked harder, shoulder slamming the wood, and my name hissed again. Sam, from the bedroom, close enough to feel on my neck. I kicked the door, once, twice, splinters flying, and it gave. I stumbled into the hall, barefoot, the cold tile biting my soles. The stairwell flickered under dying fluorescence, shadows stretching too long across the chipped walls. I ran, down 4 flights, duffel banging my hip, breaths ragged in my throat. The scratches followed, faint at first, then louder, scraping the railing, the steps, like claws keeping pace. I hit the street, lungs burning, and didn't look back, just kept going. 10 blocks through the dark, past shuttered stores, and a gas station with a buzzing sign. My feet bled, cut from glass or gravel I didn't feel. But I made it to this diner, a 24-hour joint with greasy windows, and a waitress who didn't ask questions. I'm sitting here now, hunched over a chipped mug, hands trembling so bad, the coffee sloshes, the tape's in my pocket. I couldn't leave it. Don't know why. It's like it's part of me now, a weight I can't shake. My laptop's in the duffel, that recording still on it. 5 minutes of scratches, my voice saying, "It's here," when I didn't speak. I haven't played it since the battery died, but I hear it in my head, looping with the hum that started it all. Rick called an hour ago, voice tight. "Why'd you trash the place?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. He said the boombox was smashed, walls gouged like something clawed them, the closet door off its hinges. I didn't do that. I locked it and ran. The diner's quiet, truckers at the counter, a cook flipping hash browns. But I'm not alone. Under the table, there's a scratch, soft, slow, on the tile, though the floor's smooth. I check. Nothing. Just my bloody footprints smearing the linoleum. My reflection in the window looks wrong. Eyes sunk too deep, jaw slack, like I'm fading. I don't know what Mike saw. What followed him to the door? What's following me now? It's not rats, not squatters. It's something older, something that listens when I try to sleep. I'm posting this from my phone, battery at 3%, before I figure out where to go next. If you rent 4B, check the closet, play the tape if you dare, and if you hear scratches at night, or your own voice when you didn't speak, run. Don't wait like I did.